Before it became a legend, the Ford 300 was just an idea, a desperate answer to a country that refused to slow down. Post-war America was booming. New suburbs rose, freight rolled farther, and the working man needed an engine that could carry the load every single day. Ford's F-Series trucks were selling fast, but their engines, they just weren't keeping up. The V8s drank gas and broke hearts when pushed too hard. That's when engineer Chase Morsey Jr. and his small Detroit crew got the call. Build something simple, unstoppable, and cheap to fix. Their challenge sounded like a joke, an engine that could pull a house off its foundation, run on ditch water, and still start the next morning. They turned to the Inline-6. Fewer parts, better balance, and torque so deep you could feel it through your boots. By 1965, the answer arrived, the Ford 300. 4-inch stroke, 7 main bearings, forged steel crank, all wrapped in cast iron armor. It wasn't sleek, it wasn't glamorous, but when that engine fired, it sounded like America clocking in for work. Farmers in Iowa, loggers in Oregon, builders in Texas, everyone trusted that 6. You could ignore maintenance and it'd still forgive you. Mechanics called it bulletproof. It didn't leak oil, it marked its territory. The 300 wasn't built to win races or brag on Sunday. It was built to survive Monday through Saturday without complaint. Its simplicity became its superpower. No computers, no nonsense, just American iron and determination. Out on the back roads, that low-end torque felt like a promise. Slow, steady, unbreakable. It didn't just move freight, it moved faith. Proof that Detroit still knew how to build something honest. But here's where it gets wild, because that same humble workhorse was about to earn a secret legacy Ford never saw coming. While Ford bragged about its chrome-lined V8s, something wild was happening in America's backyards. Rebellion built out of busted knuckles and busted parts. Hot rodders started eyeing that long, straight 6 under dusty F-Series hoods and asking one question: what if this thing's got more to give? They saw what Ford's marketing ignored: torque that hit like a jackhammer, iron walls that refused to crack, and a rhythm that felt alive. In shops from Ohio to California, the whispers spread: you can't kill a 300. Mechanics called it the Big 6. Bud Moore, NASCAR legend, called it the million-mile motor. That nickname stuck because no one had ever seen a 6 take that kind of beating. Then came the true rebels, Clifford Performance Offenhauser, turning work engines into weapons with polished intakes and dual quads. 2 4-barrel carbs on a straight 6? It was heresy, and that's exactly why they did it. Finding one of those setups was like striking gold. Rare, expensive, and guaranteed to draw a crowd the second you popped the hood. When those carbs opened up, the 300 finally breathed, like it had lungs the size of Texas. Raw, deep, unstoppable. This wasn't about pretty horsepower numbers. It was about feel. That torque curve hit you in the chest and didn't let go. For blue-collar racers, the 300 became a statement. You don't need 8 cylinders to earn respect. Every roar was rebellion. Proof that real performance wasn't bought, it was built. It was American defiance cast in iron, a farm motor flipping the bird to corporate Detroit. And when Ford's execs finally noticed, they weren't smiling. The rebellion had grown too loud to ignore, because under all that grease and grit, the Big 6 had turned from tool to threat. And the war inside Ford was about to begin. By the mid-1970s, whispers turned into roars. Ford's farm engine wasn't just hauling loads anymore. It was hauling trophies. Nobody saw it coming. The same motor built to pull hay wagons was out muscling V8s that cost twice as much. Its secret weapon wasn't high-rev horsepower, it was torque. Down low, sledgehammer torque that hit like a freight train at every green light. Drivers learned fast: keep the RPM low, stay smooth off the corner, and let that six do what it does best, pull. Jack Ingram, the Iron Man of NASCAR's Sportsman Series, tested one and couldn't believe how it hooked. It wouldn't rev high, he said, but it hooked up. The 300 didn't spin its tires into smoke. It clawed into the asphalt and launched like it meant business. Even drag racers like Ohio George Montgomery took notice, calling it a cast-iron fortress. With a little nitrous and courage, the 300 survived hits that split V8 blocks right down the middle. And in the truck-pulling world, the 300 became a working-class hero, cheap to build, impossible to break. Dirty Dan Wilkins, a Midwest legend, said it best. Why blow up a V8 when the 6'll pull harder and cost pennies to fix? Across America, guys were proving it. Torque, not horsepower, wins real battles. And every victory was a middle finger to the factory suits who said it couldn't be done. The six-cylinder revolution wasn't loud, it was relentless. Quiet wins, long nights, iron hands, and American grit. The message was simple. You don't need fancy, you need tough. And that's where the 300 reigned supreme. But while the underdogs were celebrating, something darker was brewing inside Ford's glass towers. The 300's success in the wild didn't make Ford proud, it made them nervous. Deep inside Dearborn, the V8 division was watching. The engineers who built the 300 wanted to evolve it. Fuel injection, lighter heads, better flow. But the suits upstairs had other plans. Ford's V8 division saw the Inline-6 as competition for their golden child, the small block, and they weren't sharing the spotlight. Retired engineer Frank Miller said it best. We begged for fuel injection in '82. They told us, put it in a V8. That was the moment the war began. Engineers fighting the bureaucracy that birthed them. Then came the real killer, emissions. The government was cracking down, and carburetors were the first casualties. The 300's simple heart, its carb-fed soul, was suddenly too dirty for the future. Horsepower fell from over 150 to barely 120 by 1985. The Anvil was still strong, but its swing was slowing. Ford's engineers knew they could fix it, modern fuel injection, better timing, but the money went to the V8s instead. The 300 was a victim of politics, not performance. It threatened the empire, and empires protect themselves. Still, out in garages, the faithful kept wrenching. They didn't care about emissions, they cared that it ran. Every time one fired up, it was a quiet act of rebellion, a middle finger to the corporate kill switch. The 300 didn't die in Ford's labs. It lived on in America's driveways, barns, and backyards. It survived because people needed it, because not everyone could afford a new truck, but everyone could depend on this one. The war inside Ford might have silenced the engineers, but it only made the legend louder. Even after Ford shut the book, America's gearheads kept writing new chapters. The 300 wasn't gone, it just went underground. Across small towns, backyard builders, racers, and machinists treated every old block like sacred metal. Guys like Leo Santucci at Six-Cylinder Specialties led the charge, grinding cams, fabricating intakes, keeping the fire alive. Their goal wasn't profit, it was pride. To prove this work truck heart could still run with anything Detroit built. Then came the wild stuff. Turbochargers hanging off manifolds, dual quads breathing fire, ignition systems built for war. Santucci's '78 Econoline van ran 12-second quarters, a cargo van, outrunning Camaros. That's pure American poetry. Every build had that same soul. Cheap parts, big dreams, and torque that could pull a barn off its foundation. You could tow a trailer to the track, unhook it, and still line up to race. That was the dream. Work hard all week, raise hell on Saturday night, and drive home in the same truck. The look was iconic. Long engine bay, twin carbs gleaming under chrome air cleaners, fuel lines braided like veins of power. It wasn't fancy horsepower, it was personality. Every idle shake, every rumble told its own story. By the mid-80s, the 300 had a cult. Forums, swap meets, racers trading parts like treasure. And every time one fired up, it reminded America what real engineering sounded like. Steel, sweat, and soul. But as the underground roared louder, Ford's silence grew heavier. Something secret was stirring behind closed doors. And the next chapter of the legend, the one almost nobody was meant to see, was about to begin. Behind closed doors in the early 90s, Ford's engineers were cooking up something wild, a project so secret they barely whispered its name. They called it Project Atlas, a twin-turbo, fuel-injected evolution of the 300 inline-six that could have rewritten Ford's future. This wasn't backyard hot rodding anymore. It was factory power built to crush torque records and silence the diesel crowd. Rumors say it made over 400 pound-feet of torque, numbers that would have humbled Ford's own V8s. But sometimes power is a threat. Whispers say the V8 division didn't like what they saw. A 6 that could outshine their best. Others blame emissions again. Stricter laws, tighter budgets, and executives too afraid to gamble on greatness. Overnight, the project vanished. Files sealed. Prototypes scrapped. Engineers reassigned. To this day, no photos, no engines, no proof, just whispers, and a few men who still won't talk. But enthusiasts swear they heard it once. That deep six-cylinder growl, turbo hiss, and thunderous pull that felt unreal. Some say the Atlas prototype was too efficient, too strong. Proof the V8s weren't the only kings of torque. Others think it was fear that the legend of the 6 would outlive the brand's image of 8. By 1996, the 300's obituary was written, "Discontinued due to progress." But everyone knew that wasn't the truth. If Atlas had lived, it could have changed everything. The trucks, the engines, maybe even Ford's identity itself. But legends don't need proof to survive, just believers. And the believers kept the myth alive. Some engines fade into history, others vanish into legend. The Atlas 300 did both. Even after the factories went silent, the heartbeat of the 300 never stopped. It kept thumping in barns, fields, and driveways across America. Every farmer, mechanic, and weekend hauler, whoever turned its key, felt the same thing. Trust. The kind you can't buy new anymore. Decades later, these engines still work the land, still tow, still start after months of sitting under snow. Ask any old-timer in a small-town shop, and they'll tell you, that 6'll run forever if you just give it oil and respect. You'll find 300s in everything, trucks, boats, forklifts, even drag cars. It's not nostalgia, it's practicality, because reliability never goes out of style. It's the American way. Make it once, make it right, and let it work for a lifetime. Car meets today still stop when one fires up. That deep, slow idle turns heads quicker than any supercharger whine. You'll hear younger builders say, "I learned on a 300," and older ones reply, "I'm still running mine." Parts may change, tech moves on, but torque, real torque, never lies. It's honest power, straightforward, American. That's why the legend endures, because in a world chasing speed, this engine reminds us that strength matters more. The 300 wasn't about winning, it was about finishing every single job and asking for more. Mechanics still call it God's Anvil, because you can hammer on it all day and it just keeps ringing. It powered generations, built cities, and carried dreams that never made headlines, the kind only torque could move. Maybe that's why, even now, when one fires up, people stop and listen. It sounds like America remembering itself, because some engines are built for speed, but this one, it was built for forever. Engines come and go, names fade, trends die, but every once in a while, one machine outlives its maker. The Ford 300 wasn't perfect, it was honest, simple, stubborn, and built for people who don't quit when the job gets hard. It powered generations who believed in hard work more than horsepower, in torque more than talk. It wasn't made to impress Wall Street. It was made to impress your granddad when it started on the first crank in the cold. Decades later, it still does. Every idle, every rattle, every low hum, a reminder that real strength never needed a spotlight. And maybe that's the secret, the reason it's still running while newer engines have come and gone. Because legends aren't built for the moment, they're built for forever.